The story you're about to hear is a compilation of documented true facts about historical characters, events, or locations. Please sit back and listen as I narrate this story to you. Charles Morgan, 39 years old, was a successful businessman and the president of his own escrow agency. He was also a possible witness in a state land fraud case involving a well-known criminal. He left his Tucson, Arizona home on March 22, 1977 to drive two of his daughters to school. He vanished after dropping them off. He finally returned home 3 days later at 2 a.m. He was missing a shoe, had a plastic handcuff around one ankle, and his hands were tied together with a plastic zip tie, according to his wife Ruth. He couldn't speak, but he wrote down with a pen and paper that he had been kidnapped and tortured. In addition, he claimed that a hallucinogenic drug had been painted on his throat. He claimed that the drug had the potential to destroy his nervous system. Ruth wanted to contact the police or a doctor, but Charles told her not to because it would endanger their family. She nursed Charles back to health for a week by feeding him with an eyedropper. He began to allude to a secret identity before his voice returned. He claimed to have worked as a federal government agent and to have fought organized crime. He also claimed that they took his treasury identification. He claimed to have escaped his kidnappers near Phoenix's Sky Harbor Airport. Charles became understandably paranoid following his kidnapping. He started out wearing a bulletproof vest. In addition, he began driving his daughters to and from school. He informed the school that no one else was permitted to pick them up. Charles has been reported missing twice in the 2 months since his disappearance. Shortly before his second disappearance, he told his father that if anything bad happened to him, he had written a letter that would tell them who was to blame. The letter was never discovered. Ruth receives a phone call after 9 days. Charles is fine, Ecclesiastes 12, 1-8. An unidentified woman tells Ruth before hanging up. On June 18th, his body was discovered 40 miles west of Tucson near his Mercury Cougar. Charles C. Morgan was shot in the back of the head with his own gun, a .357 Magnum revolver. According to reports, he was shot from behind and was most likely kneeling when he was shot. He was discovered wearing a bulletproof vest, a belt buckle with a knife hidden inside, and a holster. A pair of sunglasses discovered at the scene did not belong to him. Investigators from the Pima County Sheriff's Office searched his car and discovered several weapons and a cache of ammunition. According to reports, the car has been modified so that it could be unlocked from the fender. Morgan's tooth was discovered in the backseat of the car, wrapped in a white handkerchief, but that wasn't the strangest thing investigators discovered at the scene. Surprisingly, there was also a $2 bill with 7 Spanish surnames and a map of the border area pinned to Morgan's underwear. The map led to the towns Robles Junction and Salacity, an area between Tucson and Mexico. Those towns had a reputation for smuggling at that time, a fact that will become important later. Above the list of surnames was the note Ecclesiastes 12. Presuming this to be from the Bible, part of Ecclesiastes 12 reads, "Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil." Within the bill's serial number, there were also arrows pointing to the numbers 1 and 8. Some of the bill's writing allegedly contained Masonic references, an organization to which he was deeply committed. Charles also had a piece of paper with directions to where he was discovered. The instructions were written in his handwriting. An anonymous woman contacted the Pima County Sheriff's Department 2 days after Morgan's body was discovered. She introduced herself as Green Eyes and admitted to being the anonymous woman who had previously called Morgan's wife. She claimed that she met Morgan in a motel before his death and that he showed her a suitcase full of cash. There was a contract out on Morgan's life, but he and the hitman had worked out a deal to save his life. According to medical examiners, he had been dead for only 12 hours when he was discovered. Surprisingly, no fingerprints were found at the scene, not even on the gun. They discovered gunpowder and residue on Morgan's hand. The sheriff's department most likely labeled it as a suicide for this reason, and for years, that seemed to be the end of the Charles C. Morgan case, a supposed suicide with twisted clues that seemed to suggest otherwise. The Pima County Sheriff's Department stated that they believe Mr. Morgan had been hiding out at a motel in Tucson's west side for several days before his body was discovered. It was also reported that he told a friend that he was trying to save enough money to buy off a contract placed on his life. Don Devereaux, a reporter who believed Morgan was murdered, contacted the FBI, who claimed they had never heard of Morgan. At that time, newspaper articles speculated that he might have been working for organized crime. It was also reported that he had reluctantly testified during an investigation into some kind of business activities that had resulted in the closure of a bank. Other theories suggest that Morgan's death was the result of a suicide attempt. Morgan had gunpowder on his hand, and the gun he was using was his own, but he was right-handed and the gunpowder and residue were on his left hand. It doesn't make sense for him to shoot himself in the back of the head with his left hand, let alone kill himself in such an awkward fashion. Furthermore, the crime scene suggests the presence of someone else, as evidenced by Morgan's tooth, a pair of sunglasses that did not belong to him, and the strange $2 bill. Morgan was assassinated because he worked for the Secret Service. It should be noted that Morgan was not definitively in the Secret Service, but if he was, as he told his wife, this could have led to his murder. Morgan allegedly worked as an escrow agent for organized crime families. Morgan had also testified in a secret state investigation into illegal activity on both sides of the Arizona-Mexico border shortly before his death. He was a reluctant witness for the Arizona Attorney General's office during the investigation of a now-defunct Tucson bank. Was Morgan referring to this case when he told his wife he had been working undercover for the Treasury Department? One of Morgan's daughters, Megan Heidi, has stated, "My father had a lot of information about people here in Tucson, and that could have been very detrimental. There was a lot of information about politicians, people who were still alive that work in our government. He had that information and they wanted to silence him." Morgan could have been murdered as a result of other illegal activity. Ruth received a visit from two men claiming to be FBI agents after her husband's death. They tore the house apart and left, she said, flashing their identification, but she never found out what they were looking for or whether they found it. Ruth Morgan, Morgan's wife, died of cancer in 2006. According to the couple's 4 daughters, their father was murdered to protect the interests of corrupt businessmen and politicians. Morgan's assassination remains one of the most perplexing unsolved murders in recent American history. Hey everyone! I just wanted to express how grateful I am that you took time out of your day to listen to my narration. This is Nikki of Twysted Mind, and I'd like to wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Salamat!